Many times the outcome of COVID-19 is based on your status in the country, based on your income, based on quite a bit. And you know what is wonderful? When you have those people who are giving you the news, acknowledging that fact, acknowledging the privilege of many, and at the same time pointing out that something needs to be done about it. Love these two women. Check this out.
Yesterday, I had a long conversation with Dr. Vin Gupta, who we both know very well, who's been a great resource for us about what kinds of suggestions he would make and I would make to families. And I think the first thing is when I spoke to a nurse when my sister was transferred to a home to get rehab a few days ago, she told me every day I go home and collapse. But he says, don't feel guilty about trying to get information from the doctors, trying to get information from the nurses. You have a right to do that, and that's their job. So never feel like you're bothering them if you call to see how your loved one is doing, especially since you cannot go into the hospital. Clearly communicate the goals of care. One thing he told me yesterday, for example, my sister remains so weak she cannot sit up on her own. She cannot stand on her own. He said, is she getting enough calories? You should ask them that. And finally, know what your loved one's wishes are. Here is what Dr. Gupta told me about that.
Understanding in clear terms what someone would want if they're very sick, if they may need a ventilator. Would they want that? If they might need to be in a nursing home for an extended period of time on a ventilator, is that something they would want? These are clear potential outcomes for anybody in the country right now, unfortunately.
Chris? Yeah, it's something every family should know. Can I just say one more thing? I want to repeat what you've said so many times. Wear a mask. I would not wish this on anyone.
I do want to ask you, though, watching this and hearing her story just made me think about privilege. You got to call Vin Gupta. I got to call Vin Gupta. We're super lucky women with great jobs with access to health experts. What must this be like for people who don't have families of privilege or access to anything? What is it like for the millions of Americans out there who are just suffering in silence?
I thought about that every day. First of all, again, I have a large family, so I wasn't working on this alone. I have other brothers and sisters who have been taking this on every single day. I have the privilege of working for a company that when I said my sister is critically ill, they said, go do what you need to do. There was never any question about that, and I still had a paycheck coming in. And yes, when I was making phone calls, and I made a lot of phone calls to help my sister, I'm a journalist. I know the questions to ask, and I know not to give up. I know if I hear no to keep calling. And so you're right. And then I just think finally this has brought to bear, you talked about it when your family was sick, the disparity with financial resources in this country. God willing and medical services willing, my sister gets to go home. She may need help. We have the ability to get it for her. Very few other families in this country have the ability to do that. And we're 10 months in, and we're talking about the same problems we talked about these disparities, Stephanie, at the start.
Well,
Now, if enough Americans hear that narrative, if enough Americans hear that the people in the media, the people in power, generally speaking, they have the wherewithal, they have the necessary resources when they become sick, when they're hit by COVID or other diseases, but the vast majority of the American people don't. And the thing about it is the people who make decisions in this country are like these ladies or people of that status, and most people simply hope that they will make the right choices because, again, that's how it currently is. So therefore, having people not having to talk about their privilege and to expose it makes a huge difference. So when Stephanie Ruhle comes out and says, the one thing we have to note here is we have the privilege to talk to Dr. Gupta. We have the privilege to stay home and still be paid. We have the privilege to have all these things that many Americans, most Americans don't have. Think about how much better or how more successful we would have been in this pandemic if people just didn't believe they had to go out there and work, they had to do all these things where they potentially got more infected. It's not only those who don't want to wear masks. It's not only the irresponsible ones that are causing the explosion of COVID throughout the country. It is also those that have to go out there and work, irrespective of how they feel. So our pandemic would have been a lot less if we had better social safety nets. Even having the irresponsible group of people who refuse to wear masks, even with them, we would have had a better outcome if we had a social safety net, which made sure that companies that need to be open to stay alive, that people had to go to work to be able to feed their families, realize that, you know what, our social safety net will simply get us through this pandemic. We'll stop, we'll freeze, and then later on we can go forward. Stephanie Ruhle, that was a good piece. I hope enough people who make decisions watch it and develop a level of empathy so that when they go out there to make laws, create policies, or have employees or whatever, that they will be able to come up with the right choices, the right decisions to make life better for everybody else. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.